It was a home that seemed perfect in every way. A loving mother dedicated to her family and career, a successful husband with a stable government job, and a trusted nanny who helped keep their busy lives running smoothly. From the outside, it appeared to be the kind of life people dream of, a picturesque existence in a peaceful neighborhood. But behind these walls, a darkness was brewing. Secrets festered, growing in the silence until they consumed everything in their path. Betrayal and obsession replaced trust and love, unraveling the very foundation of this home. Inside, the scene is horrific. Blood stains the carpet, shattered glass glitters under harsh flashlight beams, and the outline of a body lies ominously in the master bedroom. Detectives pace through the home, piecing together fragments of a crime that defied understanding. This is the story of Christine Banfield, a devoted mother and nurse whose life ended in a brutal act of violence. It's a story of a husband's secret affair with the nanny, of manipulation and obsession, and of a love triangle that spiraled into murder. Welcome to CrimeByte, where we bring you the most compelling true crime stories and look into the darkest corners of human behavior. Tonight, we uncover a story of betrayal and obsession that shattered a family and shocked an entire community. Stay with us as we unravel the chilling details of this case and explore the events that led to a tragedy no one could have imagined. In this quiet town, where every house seemed to have a perfectly manicured lawn and a mailbox standing tall by the curb, the Banfield family had created a life that many would envy. Their two-story home, painted a warm shade of beige with white shutters, was the kind of place that radiated stability and love. Behind its front door, Christine Banfield, a hard-working nurse, and Brendan Banfield, a well-respected IRS special agent, had built a life centered around their two young children. Christine was the heart of the family. Known for her compassion and dedication, she had spent years building her career in nursing. At work, she was a beacon of hope for her patients, often staying long past her shift to ensure they received the care they needed. At home, she balanced her professional demands with her role as a loving mother and wife. Her days were long, but her smile never wavered when it came to her children. Brendan complemented Christine's nurturing spirit with his steady presence. As an IRS special agent, his work required precision and focus, qualities he carried into his personal life. He was the type of father who made it a point to attend soccer games and school recitals, cheering loudly from the sidelines. To those around them, Brendan and Christine were partners in every sense of the word, balancing their responsibilities while prioritizing their family above all else. The addition of Juliana Perez Magalhaes to their household seemed to complete the picture. Young, energetic, and seemingly kind-hearted, Juliana had come to the Banfields with glowing references. Her role as a live-in nanny allowed Christine to focus on her demanding career, secure in the knowledge that her children were in capable hands. Christine had welcomed Juliana with open arms, grateful for the support she provided. The long hours at the hospital meant Christine often missed dinner or bedtime routines, and having Juliana there offered her peace of mind. The children adored her, and Brendan appeared to appreciate the balance she brought to their home. But even the most perfect pictures can hide shadows. Juliana's role in the household began as one of support, but over time her presence grew more complex. She was attentive, always ready to step in when Christine was late or Brendan seemed overwhelmed. Yet, there was something in the way her eyes lingered on Brendan when she thought no one was watching, or the way she seemed to be more present in moments when Christine wasn't home. Christine, ever trusting, was too preoccupied with her work and children to notice the subtle shifts in dynamics within her home. To her, Juliana was a godsend, a partner in caregiving who made her busy life more manageable. But trust can sometimes blind us to warning signs. The Banfields' home, which had always been a sanctuary of love and laughter, was beginning to harbor secrets. What happens when the very foundation of trust begins to crack? How long can secrets remain hidden before they destroy everything? Juliana Perez Magalhaes was more than just a caregiver to the Banfield family. She was their trusted confidant, a steady presence in a household bustling with activity. Young, energetic, and nurturing, Juliana seemed tailor-made for the role. Her ability to bond with the children endeared her to Christine and Brendan, who viewed her as an indispensable part of their family. For Christine, Juliana was a godsend. Balancing the demands of her career as a nurse with the needs of her 2 young children was no small feat. Juliana brought stability to the household, freeing Christine to focus on her long shifts at the hospital. To Brendan, Juliana represented something different. Her youthful vibrancy and constant presence were a stark contrast to Christine's exhausting work schedule. He began to notice her more, not just as the family's nanny, but as a woman. What no one could have predicted, or perhaps no one wanted to see, was how this dynamic would evolve. Beneath Juliana's cheerful exterior lay feelings she kept hidden, feelings that grew stronger with every passing day. Her admiration for Brendan was no longer innocent. What began as professional respect transformed into a dangerous fixation. She found herself drawn to him, not just as her employer, but as someone she imagined sharing a life with. A life that didn't include Christine. Juliana's feelings weren't just her secret to bear. Brendan, too, began to notice the subtle exchanges, the way her eyes lingered, the slight blush that colored her cheeks when he spoke to her. At first, it was easy to dismiss as harmless, but soon, he found himself leaning into her attention, enjoying the way she seemed to hang on his every word. As the weeks turned into months, the boundaries between employer and employee began to blur. Juliana's admiration for Brendan grew into obsession, and Brendan's innocent appreciation for Juliana's help morphed into something far more dangerous. To the outside world, Juliana remained the perfect nanny. But inside her mind, the narrative was changing. She wasn't just a part of the Banfield household. She saw herself as the woman Brendan truly needed. The thought consumed her, leaving little room for anything else. What happens when admiration turns to obsession? And how far would Juliana go to make Brendan hers? Christine Banfield was the epitome of dedication. As a nurse, she had spent countless hours on the front lines, juggling long shifts and emotional demands while still finding time for her family. But as the weeks turned into months, the weight of her responsibilities began to show. At home, things weren't much easier. Brendan Banfield, once a supportive and loving husband, had grown distant. Friends would later describe him as detached and distracted, often preoccupied with thoughts he refused to share. The shift in Brendan's behavior didn't go unnoticed. Christine, already stretched thin by her demanding schedule, felt the growing tension in their relationship. The once warm connection they shared now seemed to flicker and fade, like a candle struggling to stay alight. Brendan's detachment wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Late-night work meetings and unexplained absences became more frequent. Christine, too exhausted to question him, convinced herself it was just the strain of balancing work and family life. Christine's growing suspicion was tempered by her trust in Brendan, a trust that had been the cornerstone of their marriage. But even the strongest foundations can crack under pressure. While Christine's mind was consumed by patience and paperwork, Brendan's focus was elsewhere. The distance between them grew wider, and neither seemed willing or able to bridge the gap. Their marriage, once filled with warmth and partnership, now felt like a shell of what it had been. The unspoken tension lingered in every conversation, every glance, every silence. How long can a marriage survive when secrets and distance threaten to tear it apart? And what happens when trust is replaced by betrayal? What started as stolen glances and innocent exchanges slowly morphed into something far more dangerous. Brendan Banfield, the devoted father and husband, began stepping into forbidden territory. And Juliana, the once trusted nanny, was all too eager to follow. The affair began in silence, hidden in the shadows of the Banfield home. While Christine worked late shifts at the hospital, Brendan and Juliana found themselves alone in the quiet hours of the evening. At first, it was small things, a hand brushing against another, a shared laugh that felt too intimate. But soon, those moments weren't enough. Their relationship deepened with every text, every whispered conversation, every stolen glance. Brendan began to pull away from Christine, making excuses to avoid spending time with her. Friends noticed his growing distance, but chalked it up to work stress. Juliana's role in the Banfield home shifted subtly, but significantly. No longer just the nanny, she became Brendan's confidant and companion, a role that went unnoticed by Christine, who was too consumed by her work and family responsibilities to see the cracks forming in her marriage. What Juliana didn't say aloud, but felt with every fiber of her being, was that she wanted more. She didn't want to be the secret hidden behind locked doors. She wanted Brendan entirely, and she wasn't willing to remain in the shadows forever. Christine trusted Juliana completely. As a working mother juggling long hospital shifts and the demands of raising 2 young children, she relied on her nanny to help keep the household running smoothly. Juliana wasn't just an employee, she was a part of their family, or so Christine believed. Christine's faith in Juliana was unshakable. She saw her as a reliable support system, someone who cared deeply for her children and had their best interests at heart. She had no reason to suspect that Juliana's loyalty was slowly shifting, that her seemingly kind demeanor was masking something far more sinister. While Christine poured herself into her work and her family, Juliana quietly observed every detail of her life. She knew Christine's schedule, her habits, her vulnerabilities. What Christine saw as trust, Juliana saw as opportunity. But Christine never questioned Juliana's motives. Why would she? To her, Juliana was a blessing, someone who made her life easier and brought joy to her children. She had no idea that her trust was being exploited, that the very person she relied on was carefully orchestrating a betrayal. Juliana's desires were no longer just fantasies. She wanted Brendan, and she wanted the life Christine had built. The question wasn't if she would act, but when. Juliana Perez Magalhaes had become an integral part of the Banfield household, but her role as the family's nanny was no longer enough. What had begun as a quiet infatuation with Brendan had transformed into an all-consuming obsession. Every interaction between Christine and Brendan became a dagger to Juliana's heart. The stolen glances and private moments she had shared with Brendan were no longer sufficient. In her mind, Christine had become the obstacle preventing her from the life she believed she deserved, a life as Brendan's partner and the children's new mother. Juliana's thoughts grew darker with each passing day. She began to imagine what life would be like without Christine. She envisioned herself standing in Christine's place, cooking dinner for the family, picking up the children from school, and sharing a bed with Brendan. Her jealousy was no longer contained to quiet resentment. It was festering, evolving into something far more sinister. Juliana's intentions began to solidify into a dangerous plan, one that would remove Christine from the picture entirely. February 3rd, 2023. It was a night that would forever shatter the Banfield family. Christine Banfield returned home late from her shift at the hospital, her body heavy with exhaustion. The camera follows her as she enters the house, her keys jingling softly in the quiet. She places her bag on the counter, pausing for a moment to catch her breath. Christine opened the door to her bedroom, expecting to find a sanctuary of rest. Instead, she walked into a trap. Christine had no time to react. What unfolded in that room was described by investigators as appalling. A brutal, frenzied attack left Christine lying motionless on the floor. Juliana stood over Christine, her chest heaving as reality began to sink in. This was no longer just a fantasy. She had crossed a line that could never be undone. Christine Banfield's life, filled with love and dedication, had been stolen in the most violent way imaginable. The morning after Christine Banfield's murder, the quiet neighborhood of Herndon, Virginia, was anything but serene. What was once a picture-perfect home had now become the center of a brutal and baffling crime. Police combed through the Banfield residence, documenting every detail and searching for answers. The evidence told a story of violence, desperation, and betrayal. But as the pieces began to come together, detectives discovered that this was no random act of violence. This was a meticulously planned crime. Juliana's calm demeanor was chilling. To the outside world, she was a trusted nanny, a beloved caregiver to the Banfield children. But to detectives, she was quickly becoming the key to understanding the horrifying events that unfolded. It didn't take long for investigators to uncover the first shocking clue, a series of text messages between Juliana and Brendan. What began as subtle flirtation had escalated into explicit discussions about eliminating Christine. "We found your messages," a detective says, his voice steady. Brendan looks up, his face pale and trembling. The texts painted a chilling picture. Juliana and Brendan had conspired to rid themselves of Christine, believing it was the only way to start their new life together. In Juliana's possession, police found a notebook filled with obsessive writings. Pages were dedicated to Brendan, with phrases like, "We're meant to be together," and "She's the problem," scrawled repeatedly. Some entries included disturbing fantasies of a life without Christine. The evidence suggested that Juliana's obsession with Brendan had spiraled out of control. But as investigators dug deeper, they began to question Brendan's role. Brendan's involvement was undeniable. The messages revealed not only his complicity, but also his manipulation of Juliana. While Juliana's obsession drove her actions, Brendan's encouragement and participation made him just as responsible. Detectives theorized that Brendan had exploited Juliana's feelings for him, pushing her toward actions he was too cowardly to carry out himself. It was a toxic partnership fueled by selfishness, obsession, and the ultimate betrayal of Christine's trust. As the investigation continued, more damning evidence emerged. Phone records placed Brendan and Juliana in constant contact the night of the murder. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station captured Brendan purchasing cleaning supplies just hours before Christine's death. Detectives were building an airtight case. The narrative was becoming clear. Juliana and Brendan had meticulously planned Christine's murder, believing they could cover their tracks and start a new life together. Juliana's confession was both haunting and heartbreaking. She admitted to the murder, but claimed she acted out of love, insisting that Brendan had promised her a future. The crime shocked the quiet town of Herndon and left behind a trail of broken trust and shattered lives. Christine's death was a brutal reminder of how far betrayal and obsession can spiral out of control. Christine Banfield's death sent shockwaves through the Herndon community. To neighbors, she had been a pillar of kindness and strength, a nurse dedicated to her patients, a mother devoted to her children, and a friend who could light up a room with her warmth. For those closest to the Banfields, the truth was almost too much to bear. The betrayal was unthinkable. How could Brendan, a man who had built a family with Christine, become complicit in a plan that ended her life? And Juliana, the nanny Christine trusted so deeply, how could she cross the line from caregiver to killer? Investigators interrogated Brendan for hours, unraveling a story of deception, manipulation, and cold-blooded planning. The text messages exchanged between Brendan and Juliana painted a damning picture. Forensic analysis of Juliana's devices revealed chilling searches. Phrases like quick ways to eliminate someone, how to stage a break-in, and untraceable poisons. The evidence was overwhelming. In the weeks that followed Christine's murder, the community rallied around her family, creating memorials at her workplace and holding vigils in her honor. The outpouring of grief and support stood in stark contrast to the growing animosity toward Brendan and Juliana, who were now facing charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy. But as Brendan and Juliana awaited trial, the Herndon community was left grappling with one pressing question. How could a man who once professed to love Christine conspire in her murder? The trial of Brendan Banfield and Juliana Perez Magallanes captivated the nation, with every new detail painting a more harrowing picture of betrayal and violence. Prosecutors presented the evidence in painstaking detail, leaving the jury little doubt about their guilt. Juliana's defense team argued that she had acted out of desperation, claiming that Brendan manipulated her into committing the crime. Brendan's attorneys painted a different picture, insisting he had been unaware of Juliana's plans and was merely an accomplice by association. The jury took less than 2 days to reach a verdict. Both Brendan and Juliana were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in his closing statement, described their actions as the ultimate betrayal of trust and humanity. Christine's story became a rallying cry for awareness about domestic betrayal and the dangers of unchecked obsession. In her memory, her friends and colleagues established a foundation to support victims of domestic violence and betrayal, ensuring that Christine's legacy would live on as a force for good. While justice was served, the scars left by her death remain. Christine's children, now living with her family, will grow up without the mother who loved them fiercely. Her friends and colleagues continue to mourn the loss of a woman who touched so many lives. Christine Banfield's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how trust can be shattered by betrayal and obsession. But her legacy also serves as a beacon of resilience, love, and the fight for justice. Christine Banfield was more than just a nurse and mother. She was a symbol of resilience, selflessness, and love. Her life revolved around caring for others, patients in need, her children, and even her husband, Brendan, whose betrayal would ultimately lead to her tragic end. Her story, while heartbreaking, serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk behind closed doors. Trust once shattered can create cracks that allow darkness to seep in. Darkness like the obsession that consumed Juliana Perez Magallanes and the cold betrayal of Brendan Banfield. The actions of Brendan and Juliana remind us how quickly love can turn to obsession and how betrayal can destroy not just one life, but entire families and communities. Yet through the pain and tragedy, Christine's legacy endures. Christine's story will not be forgotten. It is a call to action, a plea to pay attention to the cracks in relationships, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and to honor the lives lost to senseless violence. Thank you for joining us for this powerful and tragic story. If you found this documentary captivating, please subscribe to CrimeByte for more gripping true crime investigations. What drives people to commit acts of betrayal so devastating? And how can we stop obsession before it turns deadly? Share your thoughts below.